most all of us realize that, you know what, mass crops, they're an important part of a deer's diet. As a matter of fact, in many areas, a critically important part. Doesn't matter if we're talking hard mass, such as acorns, soft mass, such as apples. You know, you get out in New York, the state of New York, old apple trees, man, I'll tell you what, that is a browse staple that helped deer survive over winter. Unfortunately, they're disappearing. Now, certain mountainous regions, you don't have a good acorn crop, oh man, I'll tell you what, survivability and antler growth, body weights, all that type suffers. So what can we do to help stack the odds? Now, obviously planting fruit or nut, is a good start. We can also manage the existing mass trees, whether we're planting them themselves or they're existing naturally. There's certain things we can do. Okay. Right off the bat, spring, before leaf out, it's already almost too late. Right now it's June 3rd when I'm filming this. And we're right at the end right now. You can go ahead and apply a fertilizer to your mass trees. Start on the really, really small trees, at least this far out from the base. If you're dealing with just a little small tree, start about that far out from the base. Put a band of 10, 10, 10 to 15, 15, 15 slow release fertilizer, half cup max on a small tree. Just sprinkle it around. Do not get it up to the base though. That can go ahead and hurt the tree. Large trees, again, start about this far out from the base. And look up at the canopy. Go from about that far out from the base to the edge of the drip line, sprinkling a 10, 10, 10 to 15, 15, 15 fertilizer. That's going to help. On the bigger trees, you can go as much as a cup or two. Now, doing so in the spring ends up giving them fertility during the growing season, all that good stuff. Just don't do it midsummer or later, because then what it can do is it can spur woody growth and leafy growth when it should be putting its energies into fruit or nut production. Okay, where do you see the biggest trees? Where do you see the biggest, healthiest trees you've ever seen in your entire life? They are almost always that lone tree standing out in the middle of nowhere. Why? Because that way they don't have to compete for sunlight, and they don't have to compete with other trees for soil nutrients or moisture. Sure, they do with weeds, but you don't have to compete with other trees. When you remove the competition, the lone survivors can get a lot more valuable resources. So, when it comes to planting trees, always stagger them. Make your rows more like this rather than like this. By doing that, you allow more sunlight to get down in. Doesn't matter if you're talking fruit trees or cover trees for that matter. Okay, now, the ones that are actually existing out in nature. What can we do about them? We're not planting them, Mother Nature is. That's true, but we can thin them. You go out there and you release these oak and apple trees, the mass-producing trees. Release, all that means is cut out the competition. Make it so that their branches end up getting all the sunlight, so that there's a good space between competing trees so they don't have to compete for those nutrients or that soil moisture. Heck, speaking of soil moisture, you can go so far as to go ahead and take bales of straw or just a rake with leaves and rake a bunch of compost on top of the dirt around that drip line, so that will also help them retain more soil moisture. What do trees need? They need sunlight, they need nutrition from the soil, and they need moisture. Okay. Manage the trees you have, whether you're planting them yourselves or in nature. Now in nature, I'm not pruning trees, okay? Every now and then I'll prune an old apple tree that I come across, but mainly I don't prune nature's trees. I simply release them, and doing nothing more than cutting out the competing trees around those apple trees that don't produce. 9 times out of 10 they start producing again. Okay, so manage your trees, get the most out of them, and you know what? Your habitat and your wildlife benefit because of it. We can manage our soft and hard mass crops, our fruit and nut trees. We do it by reducing competition, increasing soil fertility a little bit, reducing the competition for fertility and the competition for moisture by removing competing trees and doing things to stack the fertility, stack the soil moisture, stack the amount of sunlight that tree gets. You do that, you can increase nut and fruit production, bigger nuts and fruits, and more nuts and fruits. Add it all up, win-win-win for all of us involved.